This is it, Nick. This is the special one. The special Happy Thanksgiving, Black Friday, 50th video update.
5-0. Jeez, that's a lot of videos.
That is a lot of videos. We have created a ton of boring ass videos and posted them on YouTube. We are part of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, 50 videos. Can you believe that? Okay, so this week's agenda, we are going to talk about what we just accomplished. It's pretty amazing and stellar. Never been done before in role-playing game history. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to show you some of the game. We hope it's not going to break on us. And we're going to answer a fan question. Ready? Ready, Nick?
Let's do it. I'm ready.
Let's do it. Okay.
Ready to go.
Okay, so 3.5 years ago, maybe even longer, but 3.5 years ago for sure, I got around the kitchen table with my wife and my mother, who lives with us, and my one kid, and I said, who was still in like a high chair and eating baby food, and I said, hey, I want to work on this game, this mage game, and I want to spend a little bit of money on some artwork and stuff, and I think it might have some potential. I think it might go somewhere. And my wife is like, well, how much is it going to be? And I said, well, I think about $12,000 should do it. You know, just to test it out, just to get some artwork and see what people think and stuff. And she was like, well, okay, we can invest that. And so we did. And I set out on this journey to create a role-playing game set inside of a real simulated world. Well, real is a relative term since it's all virtual. But anyway, instead of scripting all of the monsters and the quests and writing the quests and NPCs and all that stuff, instead of doing that, which I must say 3.5 years later would have been a lot easier and is probably why BioWare and Bethesda and everyone else does it that way. Instead, I was like, hey, let's skip all that and build a simulator, and the simulator and AI will build the quests and the world and all the machinations and things that go on inside the world. And so people said, that's a pretty good idea. And literally thousands of people have signed up to the newsletter and, you know, checked in on Archmage Rises, maybe watched all these videos or some of these videos. They've received emails, and everybody's waiting for the dream of, can you actually build a simulated world in a game and then adventure in it? And last night, somewhere around 10 or 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time, it happened. Do you remember, Nick?
I don't remember anything from this week, Thomas.
Yes, Nick is on his second cup of coffee, which clearly is not enough.
No.
So my goal was, like I said, to have a system that would be the GM and create the adventures for the player. Essentially for me and everybody else who's watching this, but essentially me. So I could go and adventure in this world. And I thought that I could, but I didn't know, right? Like, you never know until you do it. But anyways, I thought I had the right kind of path. I thought I had the skills. I thought I had the money. So I went and attempted that. And so my goal was, rather than writing a quest like in World of Warcraft, hey, those pesky kobolds have taken over the mine. We can't mine anymore. Please go clear them out. You know, they're a little better written than that in World of Warcraft. But anyways, the World of Warcraft quest was my goal. Like, that's like my baseline. I know it's not the best written quest of all time, but that's like the baseline. And so last night, I ran the simulator and I went to the noble, and he presented me with a quest very much like that. Like, hey, the miners, I'm getting these reports of miners, there's goblins in the area, and they can't mine, and we need someone to go and clear it out. And it was beautiful. It was all generated by real people doing real things in the world. None of it was scripted, and it all came together, and it's real. It really works.
Yeah, that is the real cool thing is that the quest description is, we have like all this stuff going on in the background, and being able to pull that data, like each individual person, how they have, like what they've run into, what were they doing, who are they, what are their relationship to other people, like sort of all of that data is available. And Thomas has been slaving over finding a way to get all this data and make the NPC speak about it in a way that's not crazy, which, if you've looked at the code, is pretty nuts. Like, you said that the English language is quite a mess.
Oh man, the English language is the rules to the English language, as anybody who has learned English as a second language will know, is completely arbitrary and ridiculous. And I spent, I don't know, 3 hours this morning to get the quest description to generate at least so a native speaker of English can read it. Right? And it not look really weird and odd, right? Like with, something is supposed to be pluralized and isn't, or vice versa. And I had this, it took me an hour just to get the right sense of the word have and has. There has been one sighting. There have been 3 sightings. But it's also, it has been 1 sighting and 1 attack, as opposed to it have been 1 sighting and 1. It's crazy. The amount of code that I put into figuring all the grammar out is ridiculous. And I have to say, we have said in the past that we were going to bring this game into multiple languages, German for sure, possibly French, Brazilian Portuguese. I haven't made any, maybe Russian. I don't know exactly for sure, but for sure German. After the 3 hours I spent this morning and the at least 1 or 2 hours yesterday, just on getting the quest, the dynamic quest description to generate correctly in English, I have no idea how I'd be able to code that in German. I don't know enough German to code the rules of it, right? This is not like a regular role-playing game where you have like all this text and it's maybe sitting in an external file and you send that out to a translator and they translate it and stuff. No. The game has to generate the sentences with verbs and subjects and adjectives and adverbs, and like, it's crazy. I'm an idiot to build this game and with, having to generate English language and stuff. So I don't know how we're going to do it for translation. I think based on the work I've done the last day, big step back as far as the translation goes. We will certainly look into it and revisit it post-release of the English version. But yeah, it has me concerned. So I thought I'd let people know as soon as I knew that I'm like, uh-oh, this is going to be a huge problem for translation. So here we are in the game, and we are going to show what we've been working on this week. Last week we made a promise that we were going to spend a week working on the monsters, and it has been a long week, hasn't it, Nick?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so let's show people. So to answer the question that we had from last week, will it be enough? Will we get it in? The 6th and final thing we need to do for Build 11? The answer is we did it. There's a lot of work, a lot of hard work. Nick's tired. I'm tired. My wife is grumpy. My kids are crying. Grandma's sick of watching the kids all the time, but we got it in. So let's show the people what we've been working on. So we're kind of running in debug mode. Oh, and for those who, maybe this is your first time seeing an Archmage Rises video or watching it run, none of the graphics you're seeing here are final. We have a bunch of placeholders and stuff. I'm not going to go through every single thing that's placeholder and what isn't. I'm not going to apologize for the stolen WoW icons or the crude programmer art that Nick made. We're just not going to address those things. So we are not even feature complete on the game. We're pre-alpha. But anyways, this is what we got here. Okay, so, and we have some dev mode stuff turned on so you can actually see what's going on in the game. So we have a world, and it has 4 towns, and this is dynamically generated. Didn't know what we were going to get. And we're going to start passing some time. And so when I start passing time, I'm going to see people moving around and doing things. So I guess that's a fisherman out there. And if we start moving by day, we see the people moving around. Now you made little symbols of this. This is all programmer art for these people. And you put a little wagon on this one, I presume, for a trader. And I think there's a flower on this one to show a forager. And so people are going out into the world from the towns. And they are following schedules about work schedules and when they sleep and when they eat and what they do for fun and spreading news and all kinds of stuff. So we're going to go and do this. And somewhere in the world, there's a layer of goblins. And because our demos always fail us, the goblins are out in the water.
Yeah, it's a water goblins.
The water goblins are spreading. So I can tell that by seeing that these hexes are being filled, and that's just like a dev debug thing, so we can see what the heck is going on. And so they are populating the world. They're claiming territory around their lair. We don't know where their lair is. We can't see it because we haven't discovered it yet, but we see through our debug code, we see evidence of that. Now, they have saturated all of the territory that they can possibly get, and now they have replicated. And so they have decided to replicate up here, and now the goblins are spreading closer to our town. Ooh, we got weather systems. We got a lot of systems in this game.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so now we have some more. We have another Goblin Lair that's been started down here, but this one has now started to fill in where there's a roadway. And so there's a roadway, and people are moving along that roadway, and they are going to start interacting with these goblins. Now, for the purpose of the demo, we've cranked the values super high, where the lethality of them is like 50%, and I think it's like 40 or 60% chance of the people interacting with them. So as I move time along, I can see that people are interacting with the goblins. So here's a trader who has interacted with the goblins. Now, how as a player would I actually know that? How would I know that, Nick?
You'd have to go check the news.
Yeah. So here's the town. Town's been building up. These grain fields are because there's actual grain fields that the mayor has decided to build based on the wealth of the town and the needs of the town. They built a logging camp and docks. They have an outfitter, I think. Yeah. Knight's Knives. That's the weaponsmith. So we can go into town, and we go to the inn, and we have a news system. And the news system, I think our first video talking about the news system was in April. And it's taken all this time, we're now in November, end of November, to finally show the fruits of building that system. And that is here. So Reginald Temple spotted goblins while on a walk in the grasslands, and that happened 2 days ago. And
was that the trader? If you hover over him?
Oh, sorry.
I'm assuming. Part of the reason is the news system.
He's a forager.
A forager, okay. So the news system, spreads between people, and then the mayor looks at what news is happening and decides, like what to do about it. So that's part of why the news system has sort of sat there for a while, is there needed to be somebody consuming it to make decisions based on that information.
Plus, there needs to be things going on in the world in order for people to talk about. We had dumb things like so-and-so has moved into a new house, and so-and-so had a baby, and that kind of stuff. But now we're getting into real nuts and bolts stuff. So there's so many things that are going on and coalescing at this exact moment. So we have people, which are running their schedules and their work and going about their business. They're going out into the world. Goblins, which are taking territory within the world and having patrols that are walking around the world. And those things intersect, and that creates news. That news then gets passed around to all the other AI NPCs, but starting with the family members and the friends of the person who actually saw the goblins. So we're now in the mayor's office, and I don't know if the mayor knows that it has happened because it may not have bubbled up to her yet. So we're going to go and ask her if she has a quest. Okay, so it has reached up to her. And so she says, hey, 4 days ago, a forager named Reginald Temple was on his walk in the grasslands, and he spotted some goblins along the path. And that is tied to a particular lair. Now, we're going to have multiple steps to the quests. There's going to be a variety of quests. We just jumped right to the end where it's like, go destroy the chieftain, Gobla the chieftain. Go destroy him and wipe out the lair. But there will be steps and investigations to do in between, all data-driven, by the World Simulator.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so go and destroy that. You have 1 month to do it, and I'm going to accept that quest. Great. And so she added the location to our map of where that lair is. So if I go back to the world, she has told me that their lair is here. Now, there should have been actual steps to get there, and we haven't quite programmed those yet, but we're jumping to the end where you can go to the lair. So now we're going to go over to this lair. And we don't know exactly where it is. We know it's somewhere around here. And now we are going to explore.
Yeah, because...
Man, I even roll bad on computers. Real dice. Oh, look at that. I got a 1.
We want it so we don't necessarily want the people to know, like the mayor to know where the Goblin Lair is. So before this, I mean, they put it on the map, but before you might need to explore and try to actually find it as an earlier quest before you destroy it.
Okay, so my my survival skill's real low, so that's why it's taking a lot of die rolls to get this. And of course, while we're demoing, I get all the worst possible rolls because that's Murphy's Law. Hey, look at that!
There you go.
I finally got it. 16 rolls later. Okay, so now we have a lair that is listed in here, and so we can go into that lair of goblins. So now we're in the Goblin Lair, and we are hunting for the chieftain. And when this lair was created, there's a chieftain that set up the lair, and then the chieftain starts recruiting goblins and other creatures into his lair. And so when we encounter goblins, those are real goblins that have actually been recruited. They have names, and they're very specific. So if you kill one of them, they're gone. And if you run away from them, then they still remain. And so you can go and kill like half the goblins, and if you don't come back for a while, they'll repopulate and such, because it's a living, breathing world. Okay, so now we're exploring here. So we're just going to quickly blow through this and get to the goblin. Oh! Okay, so here we are in combat.
This is going to be nasty.
This is going to be a nasty combat, okay? So you see some of our characters we have animated. Some of them we haven't put in the animations yet because it's still a work in progress. But here we go. Here's the most important part. We found in the dungeon, in the battle here, this is the chieftain. And the way that I know that is because I'm the developer and I just know that because he has so much HP. So kind of like in Diablo 3, we make him a unique. We're not going to cover him in purple or anything like that, but or make him gold. But he's a unique, and we will have an indication to say, hey, this is the chieftain. This is the head dude here. So he's got a big army around him, and now I need to blast him. So I will just very quickly go through that.
And this quest was to destroy, to kill the chieftain. So in theory, you could just wipe him out and then bail if you can get away from him too.
That's a good idea. Okay,
yeah.
Let's do that. So I'll just wail on him. I'm also going to cheat a lot.
Yeah, because you wouldn't be able to survive these guys.
Not without cheating. I'm not powerful enough. Oh, look, I'm almost dead. Oh, look, I died.
Oh, no, you didn't hit the H button fast enough.
No, worst demo ever. Okay, so here we are in another world, and basically I'd have to start the whole thing over again. So, and I wouldn't be able to show the exact goblin dying and going back to the original people because that I died, and that's it for that world. So now I have an entirely new world. But anyway, the part that we didn't do for the demo yet was I would kill the goblin in combat. He's now dead. The lair is wiped out of people or of goblins. And then I would go back to the mayor, and they would know that that exact goblin got killed. Quest's complete. Get some money, some loot. Everybody's happy and thinks you're better. Now, when it comes to the map, if I clear out that one area, then so there's a goblin lair somewhere around here, and this area is being filled in. So if I go and clear out that particular lair, that solves that problem for now. but the goblins are still out there, and so they can still replicate and they can repopulate that lair. And we haven't figured out all the timings for these things yet, but the idea that they can repopulate. So if you really want to get rid of the goblins and not have a goblin problem anymore, so that people can go and mine and forage and hunt, then you got to go and find all the lairs. And it's possible to find all the lairs and to wipe out all the goblins, and there will never be goblins again. And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So also working on the game this week. What else do we do? We added bodies.
Yeah. We used to have, when somebody would die, they would go to the graveyard, and their body would just sort of show up there. But that's not really what we want to do with a simulated world. We want everything to be real. So now when somebody dies, their body is at that location, wherever it is that they died. So that means that things could find them, potentially wolves could find them and eat the bodies, or the Undertaker, which I forget what the name of that is, Thomas.
Sexton. How can you not remember sexton? It's a ton of sex. That is like the most memorable thing to males. I don't understand.
If anybody here has ever heard that word and knew what it meant, please leave a comment, because I've never heard it. But anyway, if the sexton finds it, they have to go collect the bodies, and it's just interesting because you might go out, somebody's missing, and then you go and find the body. So it just creates a lot of interesting interactions. So yeah, bodies hit the floor now. Before we had the goblins, and they were we couldn't find where the bodies were going, and it turns out the goblins were collecting them and sticking them in their lair.
Yeah, so I was working on the AI of the different races, and once we had these bodies drop, I was like, okay, so the different races are going to behave differently, and here's the spoilers. I think there should always be spoiler rewards for people that watch the dev videos. So right now, the spiders will take the bodies back to be able to suck them dry of their nutrients. Wolves will just eat the body right then and there, and there won't be like any flesh left. You'll just be left with a skeleton. Goblins will leave the body there, but take all the stuff. And then bandits will also do the same thing. So there was a problem. There were two problems actually with the body. We were like, we put in the body thing. We were pretty happy about it. Like, you die, you drop exactly where you are. So if you died in the inn, you drop. There's a body in the inn. And maybe seeing a body makes people unhappy, kind of like in The Sims, where they like see like a, I don't know, overflowing toilet and it makes them unhappy, something like that. So we were doing the same thing, but we just couldn't. Where the heck are these bodies? We're looking in the inventory of the hexes, and there's no body. There's no body. There's no body. And then, as Nick said, we found out it was the goblins taking it, because what was happening was the body would drop and go into the inventory of the hex, and then the goblin would loot everything in the hex instead of looting the body. So they were looting everything in the hex, and they were grabbing the body and taking it back as loot. And that's why we couldn't figure out why are all the bodies piling up in the lair and there's none in the hex. And then what was the other one with the body?
Well, I think it was linked as forage.
Oh yeah,
we created it, so it's possible that the foragers were going out and they were picking our nuts and berries, but they might have thought a body was also a nut and berry or something, so they were also hoarding bodies. So we had bodies just traveling all over the place. It's like Weekend at Bernie's.
That's right. Yeah, so we had some pretty crazy errors that we had to get through, and we had to fight the English language, and man, there's a lot of coding in order to bring all this together, to bring all the systems together and everything. So just to sum up, the simulator works. It creates quests. The monsters replicate. They impact the world. They will eventually destroy all the towns if we don't do anything about it. So it's here. It's real. Now, everybody's going to say, great, when can I play it? And the answer is, I don't quite know yet. We have a little bit more work to do on the monsters recruiting. So as a layer exists over time, it will continue to recruit more and more monsters, and then start upgrading monsters to more and more powerful monsters. So when you go to a new lair, it's very easy, and that's kind of a low-level lair. But if you go to an old, ancient one that's been there a long time, basically, the original source of all goblins in the world, it'll be very tough in order to go there. And kind of like that system and that progression. So we're still working on that recruitment bit, and then we need to clean it up and make it fun.
Well, we also need, like, we're targeting 100-year simulation before you're born. So we also need to allow the towns to defend themselves.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, by the time you're 100 years, you're gonna, you might find a town out in the middle of nowhere, but everybody's gonna get wiped out. So that includes things like, people needing weapons, recruiting soldiers, the soldier job, using those weapons, equipping those weapons, like all the stuff that goes, down the line from a soldier doing what a soldier does. So that's the other thing we got to do.
Yep. And so yeah, we have a lot of variables to play around with, like how quickly should the goblins spread. We still have things like the goblins fight against the spiders, let's say, or the spiders fight against the goblins. So they'll actually compete over territory. Right now we just got the goblins in, but it's not too hard in order to put in the rest of the races now that we have it all figured out with goblins. So there's still a bunch of cleanup and stuff to do there. I am still optimistic that we'll be able to get Build 11 out before the end of this year. And I know I was optimistic about Build 11 in June and July. Last night, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, hit the top of Everest. And it's all kind of downhill from here. We got it working. There's some performance issues. It's not quite fun yet. There's some bugs, all that stuff. We could deal with that. We know what we're doing. We could deal with all that stuff. Okay, last thing we're going to do is answer a fan question. Now, we have some super fans out there, okay? And his name is Gabor. And Gabor sent in an email asking this question. But before we answer it, I just want to talk about how Gabor's, when I told him, oh, sorry, it's taking me a while to answer your question, I was sick. He's like, oh, I know, because I watch the videos every single week. I knew you were sick. And, so I think that's great. He looks forward to the videos every single week. We know for sure there's at least one person that is looking forward to these videos. So thank you for watching them. And so I think, he didn't say this specifically, but I think he's watched every single video. And so I think he deserves to go into the Archmage Rises Fan Hall of Fame. What do you think?
I didn't know there was a Fan Hall of Fame. How do I get into it?
Oh, you can't get into it. No.
What?
You've been kicked out.
I've also seen all the videos.
That's true. So there's a couple people. I'm going to apologize for missing anybody. This was the short list that I was able to create. And these are the people I'm going to induct. Because this is the special 50th video update, right? This is update number 50. So these are the people I'm putting into the Archmage Rises Fan Hall of Fame. Will Sama, Brendan Marsh, Duran, Don Bloomfield, Clayton, and Game Boone.
Nice. Congratulations. What is the prize?
Oh, it'll be special. There's definitely something special. Oh, and Gabor.
Okay.
Gabor is also going to be in that. Okay, so these are Hall of Fame status. They're going to get something special. And I don't know exactly what it is. And I don't want to say what it is. But they're going to get something special. And so, now, if I have missed your name, I apologize ahead of time. But here's what you can do. Okay, you can go to the Facebook link for this, to the Steam link to this, or to the YouTube, and you can say, hey, I am so-and-so, and I have watched every single one of your video updates, okay? All 50 of them. If you have watched all 50 of these video updates, I will put you in the Hall of Fame. Now, through the powers of Google, I can tell if you're lying. So, now maybe these people have missed, one or two or something like that, but I'm pretty sure they're watching, like, every single one. And I know there's some people that have started kind of, at video 30 and they've watched every single one. Well, here's a reason to go back and watch the previous 20. Boy, that sounds painful, actually. I don't think anybody should.
It really does.
That's terrible. Anyway, if you've watched all these video updates or you've watched 48 of the 50 updates, let us know in the comments, and then you will be inducted into the Fan Hall of Fame.
Nice.
We should have a Fan Hall of Fame as like a building in one of the towns.
It just has everybody's name. They're just sitting around like playing poker or something.
Yeah, and they like give you money and health and stuff. Like, we'll make them useful. They're like, Game Boon, yeah!
That's right.
Will Sama gave me 1,000 gold. This is the best. Okay, well, we'll figure out something smarter than that. Okay, so Gabor's question. Let's answer his question. So he asks, and I've rephrased it, but he's asked, I want to be the kind of Arabic mage, kind of like, in 1001 Nights, like that kind of a character, with multiple wives and maybe a harem. Is that possible in Archmage Rises? And so I think that's a pretty good role-playing question. And what do you think, Nick, about having a harem?
Well, I don't know. I mean, we've talked about the ability to have multiple wives. Not that they would, if they knew about each other, they would be happy about it.
Yeah. I
don't know specifically what the difference is between having multiple wives and a harem, unless I guess they all live in the same house.
Yeah, it's... I think it has to do with whether it's slavery or not, whether it's actually allowed. So Archmage Rise is kind of this weird sandbox game where you could do really, really evil and terrible things. And, most of them, all the evil things, I obviously don't condone. But there's a lot of evil things that we allow you to do in the game world. But there's some things that we don't allow you to do in the game world. And that's for a number of reasons. One is I simply don't want to put my name on something that you could do that in. The second thing is I'm not really sure what Steam's guidelines are for some of these weird, questionable things, like sex slavery. I kind of think that Steam would be like, yeah, that's not okay. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not even sure I want to investigate that too much. But the idea of having multiple wives was definitely something, or in the case of a woman, multiple husbands or whatever. Anyway, multiple spouses. Yes, it's possible to have multiple spouses. And so the idea was having kind of families all over the place, which is kind of how nobles would do it back in the day. The king would have, a family here and a family there and whatever. You see that in Game of Thrones. So you could have as many lovers as you want in the game, and so that could kind of be the harem if you wanted. I think we put a display limit on 5 on the romantic relationships, but you can make that scrollable, can't you, Nick?
Oh yeah, we can make anything scrollable.
We can make anything scroll. All right, so we can make that scrollable, so you literally could have as many people, and then if you wanted to say that was your harem, then that's your harem. But I think when it comes to actually taking a slave and having sex with them, I think that's where I draw the line and say, yeah, I don't want to put my name on that.
Yeah, I would say that the approach we've always been taking is that we want to create a system that simulates things. Instead of saying what you can and can't do, we're basically building a game that all the possibilities are based on what the simulation allows, which should be a large set of stuff. So for you to say you can't do something, we would almost have to program something in afterwards.
True.
So I think the first, we're going to try to make it as open as possible, so you can, live out whatever kind of interesting role playing you want to do. And then if there's some kind of problem, then we'll have to code that in afterwards. But the game is, designed to be really open at its heart.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I have little kids. I have a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 2-year-old. They all just had birthdays, so I have to remember their ages afresh now. But now I'm good. For a whole year, they'll be the same.
Right.
So we put it in the game that kids can't starve to death. It's just too sad. Again, as it stands, without any special effort on our part, the kids would die. Because
they did, because nobody was feeding them.
yeah. There were a lot of problems. They didn't have money.
Yeah.
So when Nick was programming the buying of food and everything, he forgot to include the kids in the family of being able to use the family purse, and so they were all dying off. So that's horrible that we're laughing about that. But anyway, the point of that is that's just a horrible and sad thing, and I wish that didn't exist in the real world, and so I don't want to put that in the game. So if a kid's in a situation where they have no food or whatever, they just find food.
Yeah, but anytime you make those kind of weird, discrepancies, it causes problems, right? So in theory, you have this town where everybody's died, but there's just a bunch of babies. Like,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're like these vampire babies just sitting in their houses, just living forever.
Well, they will eventually
Right?
grow up and be adults.
Yeah, and then they grow up. It's like they're in some kind of cocoon. So like, every time you try to write a rule that says, "Hey, this, in our world, this won't happen," then it causes all kinds of problems. So I don't know. These are difficult issues, but we'll just have to keep discussing them. Just let us know what you think about it.
Yeah.
We'll discuss them.
Think we made the right call here or not? Let us know, and we're happy to discuss it further. I'm not drawing a firm line in the sand right now because the harem feature, whether it's there or not there, doesn't make or break the game, and it's probably pretty easy to program either way to stop it or to allow it. So we'll see what people have to say. And on that note, I guess, now that we've talked about sex slaves and baby starving, let's wrap up this 50th episode.
That's right.
So I want to thank everybody who has pre-ordered. Really appreciate it. It helps a lot when I'm at the dinner table telling my family that they need to take care of the kids so I can work on the game. And I can say, oh, and by the way, we sold this many copies last month. That helps a lot, and we really appreciate your help and feedback. And thank you to the people that watch these videos and working their way into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and thank you for your patience. The stuff we're trying to do has never been done before. It is very difficult, but we're doing it. It's happening, so we appreciate your patience.
It's finally come true. So for the people that think this is vaporware, that was a rational and valid thing to say up until last night at 10 or 10:30 p.m. And now it's no longer vaporware. It's for real. With that, goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
We'll see you in another 50 episodes.